On today's episode of Wild Sobriety, we are going to talk about, hands down, the most crucial component, not only for sustainable sobriety, but for deepening into reclaiming your feminine and living a life of more peace and more. Something that has come to my attention over the last many years that I've been working as a coach and in the world of self-development and the coaching industry. And I've kind of been in the world of self-development probably most of my life, like searching for modalities. And what I've found is that there's this big emphasis often on that self-healing is this 100% reliance on yourself. And although I've studied with many, many teachers who have talked about the importance of accepting failure and stretching your capacity and, being willing to fail, and that failure is a sign of growth and that you're moving forward. But in the end, it always comes down to that if you aren't achieving, or the life that you have isn't the life that you want, then it's like kind of all on you. And this isn't what people mean all the time. And, again, I've worked with many, many teachers who aren't talking about emotional bypassing, but there's not an emphasis on what I have learned to be the most crucial component in a healing journey, which is radical self-compassion. I touched on this a little bit in the episode from last week. Radical is multifold, but what it means for the work that I do, and it's actually one of the shifts in my 5 shifts process, is the ability to not just care for yourself, not find another modality or another retreat or self-esteem or time, me time. It's not really about that. It is about really honor the deep, deep experience, the multifaceted experience that it is to be human, and especially to be a human woman, because this well runs very, very deep. And as women, and in our beautiful cyclical nature that is not linear, we move through cycles in a 28-day period. We actually move through what is a complete year of different seasons in a 28-day period, pre and post menopause, not in a 24-hour cycle, which is typically where our male counterparts will regenerate their cycle, is more of a 24-hour period. And this is why understanding our cyclical nature as women in relationship then to the overlapping cycle of nature, of living in harmony, a living world and planet that we live in, that we're not just moving through these seasons and these months in this linear, robotic way, that we are living, breathing human expressions. And when we can get down to the essence of what real healing is, which is stripping away all of the distortion that there is a right and a wrong way, and getting closer to the essence of who we are as both human and divine, we can sit in the seat of that compassionate witness, which is the seat of the soul, to observe from this place of our consciousness connected to the state of divinity, and more of a collective field of awareness. So we can sit in this place of neutrality, compassionate neutrality, to observe the suffering of both that which is harming ourselves, that which is the violator, and the one who is being violated, right? The victim. It's like the victor and the victim. And the one who perpetrates, not the victor. We get to be the victor in the self-compassion model. And so I've been studying the work of Kristen Neff, who has the practice called mindful self-compassion. And what's so important in this model, different from maybe what I have offered my clients in the past, is really the emphasis on first accepting our suffering. There happens to be this way in which people who, and myself included, who are on a journey of awakening, who are on a journey of self development and more self mastery or living a spiritual life, tend to their harshest critic when they fall into that place of forgetting, when they fall into that place of taking their thoughts very personally and as fact and, compounding those emotions. And that is really where I see the first point of suffering so deeply is the beating yourself up for beating yourself up. That it's like, oh, I should have known better instead of gently guiding ourselves back. So the 3 points that Kristen Neff makes in her work of mindful self-compassion are the 3 steps of mindful self-compassion. It's first self-kindness, which is what you would think of being kind to someone or to anyone else. How would you treat someone if you were being kind? Well, this is what she invites us, and what I would invite you into also is to how you treat yourself. Being able to observe myself in a place of self-compassion was truly the method in which I really flipped the switch from thinking alcohol was always going to be a part of my life into being able to finally see myself on the other side of that identity, being able to separate myself enough from the subject and the object. The second piece is understanding and accepting our shared humanity of suffering. There are people, you might be suffering right now, and suffering can have a vast array of experiences. And I think that the third point that she expresses is mindfulness is really being in that neutral observer place to say what the suffering is, to not be exaggerating it, to not be compounding it, but also to not be diminishing it. And I think this is a really important part because oftentimes we can bypass our own suffering by comparing it to another. And the reality is that we live in our own circumstance. We are kind of the center of our universe as we move through our feelings and our emotions every day. So a way to not undermine the suffering of another or to get a little bit of space and perspective is to understand that shared humanity, that yes, there is someone else suffering along with me, but also to not diminish your own by saying, well, I shouldn't be suffering because everything compared to this person, my life is going really well. But that can help soften things. So there's this really refined kind of discernment that we have to take through self-compassion. And the way that this works in a journey of sobriety is first in your relationship with alcohol is to really just take a step back and say, yes, these are the choices I've made. We have to just lay out the facts. I've made these choices. There's this place of acceptance. And in these choices has created not only suffering from the chemical of alcohol itself on my physical and mental health and body, but the suffering of the self-concept, all of the beliefs and the struggle of the back and forth, that wrestling with what does the future look like without alcohol and really not being able to see yourself there. So there's this place where we just have to accept what is and offer ourselves some loving kindness words. And so I'm going to offer you the practice that she shares in her book of self-compassion, which is to come into a place where you have been struggling, where you've been kind of having that inner battle of a couple different voices, and write down the words of the part of you that is the one criticizing, the part of you that is shaming the other for what you might be experiencing. And I'll just give you an example, a little vulnerability, and it might not seem like a big deal to you, but this is something that over the last year or so, because I'm going to qualify it, something that I've struggled with is kind of sticking to the schedule that I set out for myself with the things that are actually really important to me. Now, of course, I show up for all of my appointments and obligations that I have, but getting up at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time, those types of things is something because been adding and taking away lots of things in my life that it's been a challenge for me for whatever reason. And it has created suffering. It's created that part of me that's saying, why can't you do this? If you could just get this together, you keep saying you want to do this and clearly you don't. Very similar language to when I was trying to quit drinking, when I really, really wanted alcohol to be out of my life. Of course, there was that inner conflict. And so you write down the word of that, the one that is criticizing. You're never going to figure it out. You keep saying you want to do this. Clearly you don't. You should just give up. And then the one that's being criticized, right? And that's the voice that you might not hear. And I know I don't hear that one quite as strong. But if you think about if someone said that to you, I think about if my partner or even my son or anyone, my mother said that to me, you can't keep a schedule if your life depended on it. Yikes, how would that feel? Ouch, right? I would feel like, well, I'm doing my best. I've had it, that's where the excuses come in, kind of like, I've tried, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't do it. So writing down just even one sentence from what that voice might feel like. And then we want to take a step back as the neutral third party, because really in this, both of those voices inside of you are suffering in some way. One that doesn't want to be associated, one that feels like you have to beat yourself up in order to change, and one that's kind of the inner child that feels a little bit helpless maybe. And so when I come into this compassionate, neutral place, what do I want to offer the one that says, you're beating yourself up? And I might say, you know, this sounds like something that you really want to do. I can see that it's heavy on your heart, right? It sounds like something you really want to do, but you're being really harsh on yourself to the one that's criticizing. But I see you. I see that this is important to you. And then to the one that's being criticized from the place of the compassionate witness, I might offer, it's okay. You're doing your best. There's no right or wrong way. And I see you. This is time management is something many, many people struggle with. There are books and courses and all sorts of stuff written on this, right? Don't put so much pressure on yourself. And what are the first things that you want to start with? Like I would, then that opens up space for a plan. What's the minimum requirement right now where you can get a win under your belt? This is what we do in private coaching, where it's like, we wake up, and I've used this example so many times. It's like Monday morning, I'm never drinking again, green smoothies, and I'm going for a run every single day. And then by Friday, none of that's happened because you don't even have the habit of not drinking, right? So we have to unlearn one habit first. So what's the one habit? For me, that's been really powerful is that I put my phone away well before I go to bed. At least this is something that I've been practicing, and I've been doing a pretty good job at it, actually. I'm not bringing, videos into my bed at night. So that is going to help me get to bed easier at night. Maybe read a few pages of my self-compassion book and fall asleep versus something that's stimulating and that might keep me up at night. So finding a new way to kind of wind down and relax. Maybe I just start there. That feels so much better. So we have to recognize first the sensations of our suffering before we can go in to solve other problems. We have to recognize and honor the fact that, yes, this is hard. And that's the first step of finding relief. This is how we find relief from drinking, from the urge, from our emotions, as we dive into the real radical act of mindful self-compassion and not just self-care. And that could be a part of self-care. Yeah, it's okay that you don't cook dinner for everyone tonight. You've had a really rough day. And if you take a bath tonight, then you're going to be showing up as that loving, compassionate person to everyone else that you want to be. And it feels really weird at first to talk to yourself in this way. But the reality is that we are talking to ourselves this way all day, every day, but in the negative. And that's why we don't hear that little small voice that says, ouch, that hurts. But that is inside of us. And this is not to create a victim mentality. This is actually the strongest way to create more resiliency, because there are things in our life that may always feel like they hurt a little bit. But the more we allow the suffering versus resist the suffering, we will be able to feel it in our body without trying to push it away. So I want you to ask yourself right now, when I am faced with a challenge or with a problem, do I ignore it? Do I rush to find a solution? Or do I offer myself compassion? Because when we rush to find ourselves a solution, and this is something different in my program than some other coaching methodologies or even cognitive behavioral therapy that I have emphasized throughout, which is the need to, I say, stop at the emotion. That emotion has got to be validated. It has got to be witnessed. And that wounding inside of us will continue to surface until we acknowledge it. But once we acknowledge it, it kind of loses its power. We say, okay, to that part of us that's really our inner child, I see you and I'm here to support you. And actually, things are really safe over here. So there's a whole process of doing this. But this truly, truly is how you expand your capacity to feel discomfort, to feel emotion, and to learn how to be with an urge or be with the resistance of what is present for you, because that could be the suffering alone, to let it have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And last week I talked about, and I offered a little meditation at the end of the practice. But what I've decided is to make those actually separate episodes. So for each episode, there will be a short meditation to go along with it as a completely separate episode. And if you aren't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would love for you to come over there. It's Mary Wagstaff Holistic Wellness, because I will be offering and exploring some new types of videos that will not be on the Wild Sobriety podcast, of reading of some sacred text and some really soft and gentle guided ASMR prompts and ways to help you find relief from alcohol, from the kind of over functioning functional freeze that you may have been experiencing for many years, and you are at a point where you are ready to practice the art of receiving. And that, my friend, is first through offering yourself compassion and allowing. If we don't allow ourselves to receive the gifts and we are constantly trying to micromanage, we cannot be in that deep feminine receptivity that you so deserve, and that so much of your nervous system and your soul is really, really calling for. I'm so honored to be here with you. Please subscribe and share this episode with someone who you know might be struggling, but in the end, that's really everyone that we know. And I hope this brings you more peace in your week and in your day. I will talk to you soon. Have a beautiful week.
As a very special thanks for being part of the show, I wanted to gift you a free mini training that I created called the Permission Protocol. It's a 5-part series, 5 short videos that are really the journey of using feminine exploration as the means to release alcohol, but to also awaken into sober living, to remove yourself from distortions. So it's the feminine exploration of pleasure and permission giving that actually gets us to where we want to go. And it is a wild journey of freedom and really the unimaginable for what's possible for you through releasing alcohol, but also what you've been looking for from alcohol that's on the other side. Visit my website, marywagstaffcoach.com, or follow the link right here in the show notes, and I will see you next time. Have a beautiful day.